Welcome to Next in Queue, the podcast for contact center and customer experience professionals. Next in Queue is brought to you by Happy 2 Vision. Eliminate blind spots and see right through every conversation with Happy 2 Vision. Learn more at ajppitu.com. Now, here's your host, Rob Dwyer.
Welcome to another episode of Next in Queue. I'm your host, Rob Dwyer, and I am joined by the founder of Pryce Coaching and podcaster, Stacey Pryce. Stacey, how are you?
Oh man, Rob, I'm excited. I feel good. How are you?
I am great, but I'm even better because you are bringing the energy today. Like, I can't help but get a little hyped up because I feel like you're hyping me up. Is that what you do at Pryce Coaching? You just hype people up? Because if that's the case, I might just need you in the morning.
Absolutely. I mean, it's part of it, right? Like you kind of have to have some type of enthusiasm in everything you do, whether it's sweeping the floor or typing or whatever it is. You have to have some type of enthusiasm for it to work.
Is that what the AC/DC is for? Does that help?
Yes, it does. I was just listening to it. Literally, I was like, yo, let's go.
Oh, I love it. So for those that don't know, we had a conversation. Well, you posted about discovering AC/DC. This was new to you, and you were really excited about it. And then I messaged you and I'm like, you need to check out the whole Back in Black album. And then you were really happy with that recommendation, and I think it's fueling your workouts lately, right?
Oh man, workouts, first thing in the morning, like I put my headphones in and I'm listening to like Shoot to Thrill, like I'm just like, yes, let's go. It's the energy, like that's what I'm saying, like the enthusiasm in their music. It's just like you feel it.
Yes. AC/DC was not lazy. That is for sure.
Yeah.
Not lazy.
It's not for sloths.
No. So you are in Long Island, is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
So
born and raised.
Did you grow up? Yeah. Okay. Born and raised in New York.
Yep.
So tell me about how you first got into the contact center, the CX space.
Yeah, so many moons ago, my first job was actually at a grocery store. I don't know if you guys had wall bounds over by you. I don't.
Not here in the Midwest. We don't have that cool stuff in the Midwest. We got like Dillon's, Kroger, Schnucks, that kind of stuff. Yeah, Kroger all over the country. Got
you. So yeah, wall bounds. I'm going to guess. Don't quote me on this, but I believe it was more of a Northeast store. But I started there. I actually worked with my brother for a bit, and I'll be honest, Rob. I started out in the bakery.
Okay.
I didn't really like it, but I needed the job. I wanted to go to prom, and I was like, whatever. I'll just make garlic bread and call it a day, right? So eventually they're like, look, like go on register. And I actually didn't want to, because even up to this day, I have issues. Like I get anxiety around numbers as far as like counting out a till. Am I giving back the right change? Like to the point where like if a customer would, sometimes they'd be like, okay, I got a 10. And then they would just like add the change on, like, oh wait, I have the 15 cents. I would literally start sweating. I'm like, I don't know the answer here. So I would always have a calculator. But I worked at also Toys R Us, and I worked at many department stores. So I started out in retail. And it wasn't until I can't give you the year, because literally I was like starting to fill out my LinkedIn, and I'm like, okay, I got to pull up my resume. I don't know what day or year it was, but I worked for Optimum, otherwise known as Cablevision. at the time,
Okay.
which is a telecommunications company in the Northeast. And it was through feeling uncomfortable on the phone that it was just like that breaking point for me, because I hated not being able to assist someone. I hated that feeling, Rob. Like, it was like I felt worthless. That's really what it was. I felt so horrible when somebody would have a question and I had no response. I was like, I'm not sure, and people get really frustrated when you say you don't know. Like, that's not
Yeah.
acceptable. Okay. So I was like, you know what can I do to deal, like, what can I do to deal with this feeling? So we had something called a knowledge database, which is pretty much an online, literally a database that's filled with all of the company's information, process, logos, everything. I read the entire thing. I read all the field communications, and I just took a deep dive. So in between calls, reading, to the point where I knew a lot about not only the position that I did, which is primarily like billing and troubleshooting. I knew things for like the internet department. I knew information about the technicians and what they did and the processes that they followed. And that's when my confidence went up, and I was able to articulate myself on the phone differently. And I realized that it decreased my call time. I got more customer compliments versus complaints. To now, this opened the doors for me to start working with the training department. And when I started working with training, that also boosted my confidence. And it's so funny because I started to like even limit myself then. I was like, no, like, I don't know if you've ever had this experience or anybody else, but it's like you feel like you could be a leader, but you're afraid of what that might mean.
Yeah.
So my supervisor was like, why don't you apply to be a supervisor? And I was like, why? He's like, you can do it. You can do it. I'm like, I'm so glad you feel that way. That makes at least one of us. And I went into the interview, and now that I look back at it, I kind of didn't give my full self, because in my head was the doubt that was screaming very loud over the expertise I knew I had. And if somebody were to ask me today, like, would you be a supervisor? I'd probably still say no, because I realized that I feel like I'm destined for something else. So that was really the first taste of my call center experience.
I love it. I love it. I have a quick story for you, Stacey. So I
Sure.
also started in retail. In the Midwest, we have something called a Dairy Queen. You may have heard of it.
Yes.
They
Yes.
have amazing frozen goods. I grew up in a small town in Kansas, and we had a family-owned Dairy Queen. And so my first job was working the register. I didn't have the same trepidation about change, but that's only because before we got to start, and I think this is a skill that no one ever gets taught, like, we had a test, and it was given by one of the owners. His name was Kim, and it was known as the Kim test. Everybody knew that you had to pass the Kim test. And it was actually, he would give you a total, right? This is how much the bill is, and then give you these amounts of money, and you had to learn to count it back properly, including exactly what you're talking about.
Man.
When they give you that extra 15 cents so that you give them back a quarter or something like that.
Right.
And I feel bad because is not a common thing. I don't think
Right.
people actually teach that skill very often. And so sometimes when I'll go to a place, like I'll be that guy, and then I kind of feel bad about it because they've already got it up on the screen how much change to give. And I'm like, wait, I've got 7 cents for you. And then I'll give them 7 cents and they just look at me like,
What do
I
you
don't
want
know
me to
what
do with this?
what do I don't know what to do with this. It's gotten better though, because I don't use cash very often anymore. We're
Right.
moving more towards cards. So I absolutely understand where you're coming from with that.
Right.
And I've seen that, right? The anxiety that causes people when you present them with a problem that they don't feel confident that they know how to solve that problem. And they feel like this is a problem I should know how to solve. And you think I should know how to solve it, but I don't really feel confident in solving it. And that makes me feel bad. Like I don't like this situation.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Like that default flow chart that's in us.
Mhm.
It's like if you present said information, therefore you believe I can. So why don't? So now it's like we're in the space of why do you believe I can and I don't believe I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. And so your way of getting out of that was just, I am going to consume all the information that I can possibly consume about every potential situation
Everything.
that might come my way so that I'm prepared. You were like,
Yep.
you were being a good Boy Scout at that point is what you were doing. You were like, I'm going to be prepared.
Right. Right. I'm going to bring every backpack imaginable and every trapper keeper ever. Even the Lisa Frank folders. Okay.
Look, you just brought up an item that I think probably my listenership, that demographic, they know what you're talking about when you say
Yeah.
trapper keeper, but there
Yeah.
is certainly a cohort of people who don't know what a
They're
trapper keeper
Googling right now.
is.
They're
They're
Googling.
Googling right now, and they're going to be like, it's just a binder. And
Yeah.
you and I both know it's not just a binder.
It's more than that. It's an experience.
It is. It's an experience and it's a personal expression of your own style. That's what it is.
Exactly. Exactly.
So you do something else aside from just this CX space, which we'll talk a little bit more about. But I want to talk about, I've got some things I know I can learn from you because you've been doing a podcast, Pryce on Purpose podcast for a long time. Actually, we're closing in on like 7 years now. Is that right?
It's kind of weird hearing it from you because in my mind, it's like, like 8 months ago I started.
Right. I know that feeling. I don't even think it's been 8 months. No, it hasn't been 8 months. It's close to 8 months for me. When you talk about all kinds of things. So you talk about dealing with anxiety. You talk about mental well-being. You talk about finding your why. You talk about issues of race. Like there's just a lot going on your podcast. And like you have all kinds of different guests and you talk about all kinds of different things. So
yes.
Number one, like, let's just start with, why did you start the podcast?
Oh my God. All right, let's take it back. We gotta go. Hold on. Was it still graphite in the pencils or was it lead? Give me a minute.
You're not that old. You're not that old. Stop it. Stop it.
So, you know what the funny thing is, when I started the podcast, huge listener of the Joe Rogan Experience, first and foremost. So at that time, I was like, I had a friend that worked at I don't know if you're familiar, I think, was it WBLS or Power One? I don't even remember what the radio station was called at the time, but she interned for Wendy Williams, which is a very well-known radio show host. And I always loved to listen to her show, like loved it, right? And my friend interned for her. And she used to like, it just seemed like she wasn't really having the experience of like loving it. She was just doing it because her parents said she had to go to college or whatever. And I'm like, are you kidding? Like, I wish I was like doing that, like had that experience. And I was like, yo, tell me everything you do. She's like, yeah, I just went and got a coffee. Hey, I'm like, what? You know what I mean? But at the same time, I was like, well, in order to get into radio, I have to go through these channels and I have to do it this way. So that was my ignorance at that time. And I even like wrote the radio station a letter. Like I wrote them because I like to write letters. Like I like to write letters, like seal it with wax kind of letters. Okay.
Oh, that's old school. You're very old school, very formal about it.
I got like 1800s vibes. Okay. So like, I'm just like, yo, like, let me send them this letter. Like maybe they'll be like, hey, I like your tenacity, something like that. Like never happened. Okay. They wrote me like an email back, like, I can't even find the email now. I wish I could, so I could like put it up, but like, look at this. This is what you do. But they wrote me something along the lines of like, we're not looking for interns at this time. And it was just so dry. It was so dry. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you know what? Got it. And I went on this internet dive on how to start a podcast. And I spent hours. Like, I remember it was like 4 or 5 a.m. how to start a podcast. And when I found out how to start one, this is back in, I guess, 2015. And podcasts probably weren't as popular as they are now. I mean, they're growing
for sure
substantially right now. But I was like, okay, I'm going to start a podcast. And I really thought, I was like, oh my God, it's going to be so easy. Everybody's going to hear my voice and love me. And I'm just going to be famous. And it's just going to be great. And then next thing you know, like Jay-Z and like all these like stars are going to be like, I want to be on Stacey's podcast. Like I really, like at that moment was like in that weird bubble, And I started out just doing whatever, like talking to my friends, talking to people I knew, and just talking about a bunch of junk, right? And then little by little, like I realized I was like, why are you still doing this? Because like I had that moment, like 2, 3, like 4 years in, I'm like, wait a minute, like, what is this for? And I was like, is this like let's say I died today. Like people are going to be like, yeah, I learned a lot about this. And like, they're not really going to say that. And I was like, well, what can I do? And I think it was me going through learning myself. I was like, well, why don't I share some of what I learned? Because I read tons of books. Like that's like what I'm usually doing. I'm usually reading. Like right now, I'm taking this crazy dive into learning about like stocks and learning more even about like going back into the books of like Frederick Douglass. I actually just got this book. Oh, it's downstairs. Whatever. I found this book about women's speeches from the 1920s. Like I just love to read and I love to see evolution of people. And when I came across like books like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, or like that's like back then. And then what else? We got Jeffrey Gitomer. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Oh yeah.
Amazing sales dude and customer experience expert. I started to realize that this information's not going to do anyone good by just staying in my head. Straight up. It's just not going to serve its purpose. And I don't feel that knowledge is knowledge unless it's like shared with other people. So I said, you know what, let's start talking about some stuff like that people could be going through or may not have even known. Because just an example, I use Twitter primarily. I've just started using LinkedIn a little bit more, but I just started to type out some quotes. from like Earl Nightingale or like, Napoleon Hill. And somebody's like, I've never heard that before. I'm like, what? Like, it was actually shocking to me. Like it was a naive moment because I'm thinking everybody's got it. Everybody's got access, right? Everybody doesn't have access. So my show is to help those that don't have access so that if and when I go into whatever happens when you die or whatever, somebody can look back and be like, oh, I never heard it like that. Or, oh, I didn't know that was possible. It is possible. It is.
I love that story. And there are so many things that strike me. Number one, the Little Red Book of Selling, Gittimer, was like the first sales book I ever read in my life. So I know exactly where you're coming from. That feels like a lifetime ago. It wasn't a lifetime ago, but it feels like that.
Yeah, got you.
I think that what you bring up is twofold, right? We often make assumptions about what other people have access to, and we can often be wrong about that. But two, just having access doesn't mean that we know where to look, right? Even if you think about a library, libraries can be pretty intimidating just by themselves, right? I mean, you're talking tens of thousands of books on all these different subjects, and where do I start and where do I go? And that the personal recommendations are really the way that you often figure out where I want to go and what book I want to read, whether that's a book for just your beach reading. I want to read something that's not really educational, that's just pulp and I can get through, or whether that's something where you're like, I want to consume something that's really going to enlighten me and maybe give me some different perspective on something. And then as we do that, maybe we find like, okay, I really like this author, or okay, this author seems to get recommended with this other author a lot, and maybe I'll check out what they've got. But giving a voice to some of those so that people hear, okay, well, that's what they're talking about and that's what they're about. That's a great thing that you're doing, because then we can go, oh, okay, maybe I should check that out. I haven't read that. Maybe I want to read that.
Yeah, absolutely. And primarily you can't, I don't think there's a way you can unlisten to something that does not exist. So the beauty of podcasting, I feel like, of course, I don't have any data, about this. It's kind of a theory, but once you hear something, I feel like sometimes it may stick in your mind. You don't know where, until it comes up again. Something about it became substantial for you, but you don't even know until you hear it again. And if somebody listens to my show or your show or so, I hope that something's going to happen in their lives where they're like, they have that aha moment, because that aha moment, you're more likely to share that with somebody else, and maybe they too will have an aha moment.
Yeah, the other thing that I love about podcasting is that it is so accessible and allows really anyone who has something to share to be able to just do that.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of platforms to do that now. What was that like in 2015? Because I know, so just for anyone who's curious about starting a podcast, like it's really pretty simple today, right? You just need some very basic equipment, right? And you can go like, I can start it on my phone.
Yep.
Or I can go a little more upscale, and I can spend a whole bunch of money, and I can have a studio and all of that stuff. But It's really just about recording, whether that's audio only or video like we're doing today. And then I just upload it to Anchor, and Anchor distributes it everywhere. And then I put it on YouTube, and it's on YouTube, right? It's easy. What was it like in 2015 doing that?
You know, when you asked me this question or you started to lean into this, I was like, all right, I got the artifact. I'm going to share with you how it all started, okay? With this,
Awesome.
okay? This is an iPhone 4. Okay.
Which has been immortalized in many a song.
Yeah. So this iPhone 4 was my microphone. So I would literally just sit there, and me and the other person, I'm like, yeah, okay. And I would take it off of here and put it on which I still have right here in front of me, my 2010 MacBook Pro. Oh man, it's pushing it. It's pushing it, Rob. But I would upload it. Yeah. So I'm surprised it does everything it does today. I'm just like, you still kicking? But I put it on SoundCloud. And that's where I started. I didn't even have it on Apple Music at first, or Apple Podcasts, I should say. But even then, it wasn't Apple Podcasts, it was just Apple Music. Right. I didn't launch it anywhere else, really. It was SoundCloud. And all I would do is just post a link on Twitter, post a link on Twitter, post a link on Twitter. And eventually it started to grow. You know, at one point, and I was like, what the heck happened there? And it's so funny. I'll share this little point too. You know, it is so important. Like, even if somebody's listening right now and they're like, yo, I thought about doing a podcast, I don't know, whatever. The most important thing, or I should say two most important things you can do, is provide value and be consistent. That is the highest of the high. If you want your podcast to connect with others and really like have that synergy and that relationship, those are the two things. Because what I learned is, like, literally, you know, before I started working at the first collection center that I worked at, which was RUI Management Services out here in Melville, I got so obsessed with that position or working there that I actually dipped off on my podcast. And the funny thing is, that's when my listeners went to like 30,000. And I was just like, oh my God. And then I'm like, I haven't podcasted in 2 years. Like, what the heck? But that's why, you know, hang in there, because, you know, sometimes we'll start a podcast or start a project and we're like, where is everybody? Or we had that one moment we look at the metrics, 100 people. Oh my God. Right. It will grow. Just keep on keeping on, like, be consistent as possible. And definitely provide that value. But yeah, iPhone 4, that's how it started.
I think that is great advice for a lot of things, and that is be consistent, right?
Yeah.
Keep going out there, provide value, and be consistent. And those are words that can apply to a lot of things, not just podcasting, for sure.
Absolutely. And that's why I love the customer experience so much, because these skills that you learn along the way, these are skills that can help you in many areas of your life, whether it's for you and yourself, or you and your family, friends, interacting with strangers, whatever. Like, these are life skills. That's why I don't even like to say it's customer. Yeah, you teach me all these customer life skills.
Yeah, 100. So you were at Cablevision, right? Doing that thing. Was RUI, is that where you ended up next?
Yeah. Actually, after Cablevision, like, I had a good chunk of my life was there, because I moved up rather quickly. Like, I did customer service, then I did training, and then there was a position open to handle corporate complaints. That's where a lot of my attention to quality developed. I mean, I had a supervisor, shout out to Andre. You'll probably never hear this, but whatever. This guy, it's so funny, because that became like a strong skill for me now. because I would write an email and it's going to go to the VPs like, write it over, write it over, write it over. I'm like, you tell me to write this email over one more time, man, you gonna write it. You know what I mean? But I learned so much about how to not like go around the message. State the message, be precise. Precision is so important when you are looking to get from point A to point B. So I learned that, and it's so funny because now I also do like content writing and stuff like that. You know, I do a gazillion things, but you know, it's so funny. Like we develop skills and we don't even know when or if we'll need them. I mean, I'm not using the Pythagorean theorem, but I am definitely using that precision. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I ended up at RUI, and that was actually really, really tough, Rob, because to me, Optimum was like laid back, right? Hey man, I'm here to help, not a problem. Oh, I'm so sorry that happened. We're talking about money now, you know, we're talking about dollars. Like when you start talking about dollars, oh my goodness, like the tension, like it gets intense. And now I had a new battle because I'm the nice person. You know what I mean? I'm the, you know, the people pleasing, nice, oh, everything's gonna be great. And then somebody comes, I'm like, you know, something else. So I'm just like, so now I have to learn how to deal with this confrontation type of stuff, but also to still sound confident and get that like shakiness out of my tone, because that would happen a lot. And my calls were always going to a supervisor. So now it's like, it took my ego a little hit because, or hit my ego, I should say, because here I am doing so well here and now new environment. So now I can't just go read the knowledge database here. I can't.
Right.
You can't do that in collections. It's either they're paying or they're not. But I realized, I said, you know what? Now I'm realizing there's another level to this. If I did it here, there has to be a way to do it here. How do I do that? And I had to really see what the calls, like what was happening on the call, like what is actually happening. And I was like, oh, I'm here like in this like problem zone. Like there's a problem and I don't know how to get out of it. Like I really don't. I was like, okay, we got to transition. How do we do that? Oh, okay. I got to prove that I listened to this person. And I reverted back what they said. And I realized this was more empathy than anything that I've ever done in my life. And I had to really understand where they were coming from. And oh man, it was tough. I'll tell you, it was really, really tough because I didn't realize some things that people were going through and how important this particular company. I was on the end of helping people with another major television provider and helping them pay their bills. So I realized they were dealing with a lot of stuff and how important their telecommunications service was to them and their family. And I think we see it even more now because, you know, with all these apps and everything, we're building this digital world connection. I think it's almost like poetic, you know, it's like connection. Once again, humans are in another dimension trying to connect, you know, through the internet. And I was like, wow, because me, I'm just like, all right, if it's off and I can't pay, I'm going outside. Like I got options, you know what I mean? But I realized that's me. That's me. I'm an outdoorsy person. But some people, that's not them. Like the feeling that I get, like whether I'm skateboarding or going on a hike, they have now channeled it into an experience with connecting with others or connecting with a game or whatever it is to them, you know? And I was just like, oh my goodness. And once I started to understand that, Rob, oh man, I heard them differently in my head. I heard them so much differently. I was like, oh, I gotta remember this is another human too. Although I may not agree with how it's going, I still have to understand how it's going for them. And that gave me another superpower I didn't even know I had.
Stacey, you just brought up something like I actually just wrote an article about this, and
Mm,
I feel like we talk about it a lot, but
mm,
you're really getting to it, and that is empathy and what
mhm,
real empathy is. Because
mhm,
we hear, like, if you're in the contact center business for any length of time, you're
mhm,
going to hear the word empathy.
mhm.
What real empathy is, and the part and it's hard, it really is, it's
Of
a
course it is.
hard thing to
It's
do.
challenging. Yep.
It is really understanding the feelings that someone is going through in their situation. And so you
Mhm,
really have to listen and understand what their situation is, put yourself into that, and try and understand, like, how does that feel? Like, what does that mean to them?
yep.
And it's fascinating to me that I think collections often has a bad name, right? Because if you've been someone who's had to talk to someone in collections,
Mhm,
that usually means like you're in a bad spot financially, right? You're going through
yep.
some things, and so people don't like to think about talking to people in collections.
Mhm,
But to be effective in it, what I
mhm.
hear you saying is I had to feel these people. I had to know what they were going
Heck
through.
yeah. Heck yeah. Because, if you put your lens on it, it's definitely not going to look the same. Like it's just not going to look the same. It's like, what? Are you kidding me? But when you take apart, and I'm not saying to sit there for 20 minutes, like, let me really understand. It doesn't always need that, But what I started to do is look at it in layers. What is this person's tone? How do I feel when they're speaking to me? What are they really saying? Like, what are they really saying? I feel like sometimes a lot of the conversation is in the silence. And, you know, when I really heard that some people were struggling financially and literally they were at their wits end, with certain things. Like, I think there was even a call where there was a family, and I think the son, I think, was in the background. I think I was speaking to the mother, and she was so adamant about getting the TV service back on. And her son's in the background, like, Mom, how about we just not have the TV for tonight? Like, we don't even have food to eat. Like, that really, because I was just like, this is more important to her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, although I may see it differently, her son may see it differently. Like, this was important. It's not for me to judge. It's not for me to be like, what, are you kidding? Like, eat. You know what I mean? It's not for that.
Right.
But I had to take my hat off of my perception and put theirs on, because now when you do that, you can respond to them in their language. Like, yeah, we speak English, of course, but there's a difference. There's a difference.
Yeah.
Like, when you speak somebody's language, like, I started to see that, like, when you spoke what through their perception and their vision, like, I understand this is very important to you, and you're doing the best that you can to make your payments. I see what you're doing. Let's let's see what we can do to get you back on track. Oh my God, you're the first person to help me. I didn't even do anything yet. And when I started to get that, I was like, why am I getting that? Why are they saying thank you and I didn't do anything? Because usually I'm thinking in my head, thank you is you did this, therefore this. I was
Right.
like, it's listening.
Yeah.
It's listening.
Yeah. Someone was
Hmm.
listening and they
Yeah.
needed that.
Hmm. I think even more than ever, I mean, it's always important, but more than ever, I think these last few years, because I was actually working from home during the beginning of the pandemic, and I got calls that it was just on another level. It was just on another level. And I realized how important it is for humans to connect with one another authentically. I'm not talking like I'm just going to read from the script here and just say these lines, because that works sometimes with some people. It does. Like sometimes, like you can go to some call centers, some people just say it and they're like, yeah, whatever, just fix it, you know?
Right.
But during that time, that none of that would work. None of it. You know what I mean? And even reading one of my favorite books on the customer experience is Jeffrey Ginniver's book, Customer Satisfaction. Yeah, customer satisfaction is worthless. Customer loyalty is priceless. That's my favorite book. My favorite, because it gave me a whole nother view that the agent is the most important person on the phone. You're the driver of the car. You're the limo driver. You got to open the door. You got to make sure that put your seatbelt on, Mrs. Jones. You know what I mean? Mrs. Jones, you want to go for Mrs. Jones? Put your seatbelt on. Like, you have more control than you think. But sometimes what we hear, or what I would hear on calls, is that representative has no idea that they're important because of that old school mindset that the customer's always right. They're not always right.
No.
I understand what that meant. I understand what that meant, and I understand what the person that created this intended. But the issue is that energy transfers and it's never destroyed. So even though you may not be saying it, we feel it. It's still in the space. It's still in the room. So when we start saying like, you're the most important, think about it. If you Rob, you're important.
Oh, thanks.
You are, though. Look at all the stuff you're doing, but you understand what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
when you come from that perspective, automatically somebody feels good. Automatically, they have the can-do attitude. They may not have all the facts, but now, I think I posted this on LinkedIn the other day. The question is more important than the answer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's always the question. If we do not put that belief system into our representatives or our contact centers, even our management team, if we don't put that they're important, I feel like it's like that one door that should have been open that connected to them all. We're over here trying to keep all the doors open. It's the door on the left, the one with the gold around the trim. The one with the light that says please open first. Yeah, that's the one. We're like, no, let's open the other ones. No, open that one first, see what happens.
I feel like often people lose sight of the fact that the people that are answering the phones or responding to chats or responding to emails or responding on or whatever the channel is, right? The channel is not important, although we can talk about voice a little bit more, but the channel is not really important. Those people are the people in control of your brand experience.
100%.
And they have more sway than any commercial, any follow-up email, any perks that you get. Like, those are the people that can make or break your relationship with your customers.
100%.
And if we don't focus on making sure that they understand how important they are to that, then you get people who are just like, well, I'm just here answering phones, and that's not good for anybody.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I've seen it happen where representatives would come into training and they have this can-do attitude, and they would go out on the floor, and literally you see this enthusiastic, open-minded person go from that to I'm just trying to get by. Because
the conversations are about average handle time. They're about your unavailable time. They're about like, you were a minute late from break. there
Mhm.
about, right?
Rob,
All of
you
the
can go on
things.
forever about this, right? Like, seriously? Like, I don't know how many times in our society, like, whether it's in our contact centers or what we're seeing now with Netflix and Disney, how many times does it need to happen over and over that we focus on the numbers and not about the experience?
Yeah.
It's consistent, Rob. You can look back at data from years ago. Like, I mean, decades. It's the same thing. The numbers go up for a moment. I'm not gonna lie, they do go up. You're like, okay, we need to get from here to here. All right, let's go. All of a sudden, just weird. All of a sudden, the numbers aren't working anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers aren't. Oh no, we need to do this. We need, and then next thing you know, company A is just bought out by company B, and then company B becomes company A. It happens all the time.
It does.
Like, all the time. I'm laughing because it's ridiculous. It's literally ridiculous. And I'm just like, here we go again. Here we go again. And we can also look back and look at the companies where they're focused on the user experience and what happens with them. The data's there.
Yeah.
When are we going to take the data seriously, since we're so data driven? Like, when are we going to take it seriously?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the most successful and iconic brands, and it's all about user experience. And then the people that work the front lines feel empowered and they are encouraged.
Mhm.
You know, one of the brands that always comes to my mind, and I am not a user, by the way, you are, but that's Apple, right?
Of course.
Apple understands user experience. Like that is their thing. And users of their products, man, they will just die on a hill for those products. They literally are like, I will not touch anything else. And if you take away my MacBook, I may as well just commit suicide, because it's just not, it's not worth living anymore. I'm done.
I will become a scribe. We're going back to paper and fountain pen. That's it. You made such a great point there, because I was going to say it, but I was like, let me not say Apple. But I was just doing quick research last night, right? I really wasn't going to say it, but I was like,
you were like, I don't want to be that super fan, Apple super fan.
I don't want to be biased,
but he said it, so it's fine. Now I can do it.
But I was like, hey, it came out of Rob's mouth, okay? But I always, when I was coaching a representative, so I had this great opportunity at RUI to start coaching, and that's where I started to learn about how to convey what I know so somebody else can understand it. Because I can't just like give you my brain and you're just like, oh, it all makes sense now. That's like not how it's gonna work, okay? So I developed a teaching method, and I started to develop, so I have this speaking engagement I do called the anatomy of the phone call. I felt it would be beneficial because if we understand the pieces of the call and what is happening, we could better fuel our responses to eliminate the use of call center scripts. Like, in totality, we no longer need a script if we understand where we are in the call. If you understand where you're going, you kind of will figure it out. You'll be fine. So I had this opportunity to teach this, and now I lost my train of thought. I really, oh, we're talking about Apple. Okay. So
I
was like, wait, where are we going with this? Okay. So I would actually show videos of Steve Jobs' speeches for more than one reason. One, obviously, like, I love Apple, but sorry, Rob. All right. So not to say, and I will say this, not to say that there aren't other great devices out there. I've used them. They're fantastic. However, just like any other human, when you have an experience, you want it repeated. You want repetition because of you're a human being. There are certain things that feel good. You want it again, and you want it exactly the same way. That's why Starbucks works. You're not going to go to Starbucks and it's like, it's a little salty today. No, it's the same thing over and over again. Anyway, we're talking about Apple, right?
Well, now I'm
Steve
thinking about
Jobs.
my triple venti caramel macchiato, but you go
Yeah.
on with your Apple and I'll think about my macchiato. And I think we'll meet in the same place at some point.
We'll meet in the middle. We'll meet in the middle, Rob. So the whole point is, the reason why I showed his speeches is to show representatives what it's like to feel, or how a message is conveyed when somebody believes in it. If you believe in it and you believe in your abilities, it's not just the content, it's not just what it does and everything. There has to be some type of synergy between you and what you are delivering. Steve Jobs was amazing at that. The way he spoke, how he articulated himself. And it's so funny because he could be like, cheese. And everybody's like, yeah, cheese. You know what I mean? It was just the way he did it, right? So people would watch and they're like, wow. Like, I'm like, when you listen to him, do you believe him? He could be full of you know what, but do you believe him? Do you believe him? Yes. Why? He seems like he believes in it. Oh, there it is. If you don't believe in what you're doing, you don't believe in your abilities, you're not going to get somebody else to believe in it. In anything. In anything. If you think you're a sucky dad or you're a sucky mom, and you go and you're like, oh, your kids are gonna be like, what the heck is going on here? I mean, some kids, if they're really nice, they're like, you're the best mom ever. And then you tear, you're like, I thought I sucked. You know what I mean? But like, you have to believe in what you do. And I would show them that and they're like, wow, I never watched that before. You know what I mean? I never understood that. But I was like, look what he's talking about. He's talking about the user experience. He's not talking about, we need to get our stock price from here to here. Of course, that is important. Yes, we need that. But what comes before that? We need people to use our products. How do we get them to use our products? Let them know what Apple's about and why. Why is one of the most important questions of anything. So I think if we get back to that and start, it's kind of like school, right? School, we don't focus a lot on philosophy, or unless you're doing that or anything. There's no real talk about thinking. The difference is I'm providing you the content. I want you to understand that this is what it is, versus, is it what it is? And letting somebody do the thinking. That's the issue with these scripts and everything, and the call center space. See, now you got me started, Rob. The call center space, that's like one of the number one jobs where burnout is the reason why people quit. Employee burnout.
Yeah, it's I tell people this all the time. It's a hard job. It's a really hard job. It's actually, when you think about the skills that are required to work in a contact center, you need to be very computer literate, because there's a chance that you're going to be working with multiple systems.
Yep.
I imagine, right, when you were at Cablevision, right, you've got a billing system, you've got all these other different systems that sometimes talk to each other, sometimes they don't talk to each other, and some of them are super old and some of them are maybe a little more mature and user friendly, but some of them, like, you're tabbing through, right, to get to the fields that you need to get to.
Yeah. Like,
so you need to know. Yep. You need to know how to navigate all these different systems. And then at the same time, you need to be able to understand what questions to ask so that I can uncover what the real issue is, the reason that you're calling today. I need to be able to listen intently. I need to be able to listen with empathy. And I need to be able to navigate these systems while I'm listening to you and trying to solve whatever issue you've got today. And I need to be able to deal with people who are at all kinds of different levels, whether it's their pace of speech. I need to deal with different accents. I need to deal with people who are upset. I need to deal with quiet talkers. Sometimes I can barely hear them, and you're like, I'm having trouble hearing you, right? And they've got to fight through that, and they're like listening
Right.
intently and cupping their hands over their ears, so hopefully that they can hear as much as possible. Like
Yeah.
all of these things are going on in a contact center,
Right.
and yet, for the most part, we consider it an entry level position. But it's hard. It's hard. And it's
It
not
is.
for everyone. And
It's not.
it's challenging. And sometimes you deal with people that you just don't like very much sometimes.
Of course. Yeah. Be honest. I mean, it's true. You're going to have some customers where they're going to use certain language, or they're going to come on the phone with a certain type of energy. You know, this is from, I'm trying to think of the book now. Oh man, I'm drawing a blank, but hopefully I'll remember. But long story short, one of the most memorable parts of this book that I read, I can't believe I forgot the title, but anyway, he said,
Not the title that's important, it's the content.
Exactly. I wanted the title so that people could read it, but he said, don't take anything personally. Be like, not even whether it's a compliment, whether it's something somebody says out of anger, whatever it is, don't take it personally. And those are the first times I heard somebody say that, because I can understand in the sense of anger, not to take that personally, but it was the first time I heard even compliments, to not take it personally. And immediately I'm like, well, why would I not? Like, they're telling me I did a good job. Like, what's wrong with that? And then I realized the whole point is to free yourself, because if you think about it, when you're on the phone or doing anything, and somebody says, wow, you did a great job, you're elevated. You're elevated now. You're like, yeah, I did it. This is fantastic. But then what if that same person is like, wow, you didn't do so well here. Now you're back down again. And then they say, wow, you did great. And then you're back up again. And then the cycle repeats itself. But what you're allowing yourself to be exposed to is their energy controlling how you see yourself. So if you free yourself from that and just understand that the person appreciated the activity, yes, it was done by you, but they appreciated that at a little distance there. When they do say, you know what, you're the worst customer service rep I've ever spoken with, that's their perception. It's gonna touch you a little. It's gonna hit, but it doesn't crush you. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Man, this has been so good. But we haven't even talked about what you're doing today. So let's talk about Woo! We've been talking about a lot of
roller
stuff.
Coaster.
Yeah. Let's talk about what you're doing today.
Oh man, where do you want to start? Jeez, Rob.
We'll start wherever you want to start. That's where I want to start.
That's cool. I respect that. Thank you. Yeah, so I mean, I'm developing Pryce Up coaching. The whole point in that is to free ourselves from call center scripts and to create the space for more authentic connection. I think as humans, we want to genuinely connect with more people. We like being together. I think we've seen that even the last 2 years. You know, we were like, oh my God, a hug. Like, can I just get a hug? You know what I mean? Like, we want human connection, that we're built for that. It's necessary for our survival. I think that the call center space is a great space to start off with, helping people to do that over the phone. You know, I think that is an amazing space. I mean, yes, in person in retail, but over the phone is so important. So I'm building that out to get into the call center space and help representatives or leadership teams to really get to that next level of the space that we've kind of been avoiding. I also work for Reset Business Consulting. So in this space, we help people with their media, their website design, and even podcasting to get business owners to create a podcast of their own and to really connect with their people, which is so important, especially now more than ever, with business or so. And of course I'm doing my show. So yes, I have Pryce on Purpose, but I'm sitting on Quality Theory, which is my customer experience based podcast. I actually had David Powers on. He does I had him on. He has a podcast called Caffeinated CX. I also had Adrian Swinsko on. He wrote Punk CX. These two people are amazing. Hopefully I'll have you on, Rob.
I'm game.
Awesome. But yeah, I felt that, I think, for me to go into that space, I want to really take a tour of different call centers and see where the innovation is happening and kind of help other call centers to ride that wave. Why not? You know what I mean? So I'm doing that. Trying to think. I'm right. I'm working with others to Tim Kroll. He was on season 2 of Lego Masters. And Maria Daniels, she's the CEO of Reset Business Consulting, well, founder, I should say now. But we're writing a book about a leadership book to help business owners. There's a lot going on, Rob.
Exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's weird to hear. I'm sure when I listen to this back, I'm gonna be like, you're doing a lot. And you be like, I'm not doing enough. It's so funny. I'll be like, man, I'm not doing enough. And then I'll look back and I'm like, oh my God, am I still sane?
And just so that we're clear, you used to be the quiet one in the back, right?
Literally.
Just so we're clear.
Yeah, just so we're clear. I used to be, because I was like, I'm shy. I'm so timid. Yeah, here we are.
Yeah, seems like maybe you got over that at some point.
That's a little,
I mean, you may not have 100 gotten over it, but
yeah,
I can hear the infectious excitement and the passion, and I think that's something that when you find people that are passionate about something, whatever it is hard not to just want to listen and soak it up. And you've got that going. You got that passion for that. So if someone wanted to get in touch with you,
yeah,
what's the best way? Should they just at you on Twitter? Is that the best way?
Yeah, at me on Twitter. At me, yo. Yeah, Pryce on Purpose. PryceonPurpose.
Put you on the spot. I made you spell out the whole handle.
What is this?
See it. Wait. Make sure you get the right letters out in the right order.
I started spelling it. It was like Sesame Street. The letters were just everywhere.
You know what? We'll put the handle in the liner notes. It's fine. You didn't have to actually spell it out. But I'm glad that you did. So good job on that.
Oh,
you solved that problem. You did it successfully. I loved it. And obviously you're on LinkedIn. I know you said you're a little bit new to LinkedIn, but you seem to be on there regularly. So I imagine people can reach out to you there as well. And I just 100%. Have to say, if you're not following Stacey, do it, because if you liked anything about this podcast, where do you see the content? You're going to love it. So Stacey, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Rob, it has been an absolute pleasure. I had fun. Thank you.
I did too. The rest of my day is going to be pretty amazing. I can tell you that right now, and it's because of you. So.
Heck yeah.